Welcome to another episode of the Virtual Engagement Ideas Summit. We've got a very special guest today, all the way from Endicott College in Massachusetts. Lindsey Shrayer is the Assistant Director of the Counseling Center, where you've been for 13 years.
Yes, I have.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. But that is not where you got your start. Where did you get your start? Where did you go to undergrad?
I went to undergrad at the University of California at Santa Barbara. Go Gauchos. Yes, that's where
Go,
it all began.
go,
Yep.
go.
Yep.
And then where'd you go from there?
So after I graduated, originally from Massachusetts, had moved out to California when I was 15, finished up high school, went to college out there. And then at the time of graduation, my father had moved from California to Virginia, and I was kind of at an opportunity. Where am I going to go? And Massachusetts, Boston area, I am definitely an East Coaster through and
Yeah.
through, despite the beautiful weather. So I came back to Massachusetts after graduation. And after a few years working for a rape crisis center, I really wanted to expand my degree. Wound up getting my master's in Massachusetts at Cambridge College. Hmm.
Very nice. So just a caveat to everybody watching this today. I already said this to Lindsey before we started recording, but one of the beauties of working in this new realm that we live in is that there are two giant white vans outside of the Global Education Center today. And they happen to be with the same company that provides internet to this whole building. So they have successfully chopped off the internet for me for the day, and I'm using a Wi-Fi hotspot. So a lesson to everybody, or a good idea, is have a backup plan. Right? We recommend connect to the Ethernet cable, get the best connection possible. But today, if it may be choppy at times, connection is better than perfect connection.
Yes.
Right?
Wow. Wow. You went deep,
I
went
went
big.
deep.
I like how you pulled that all back together.
Well, I am with a counselor, and I think that you would want to, we could chat about that idea
Yeah.
for a long time. Like we don't have to be perfect.
No. No. And I think it's ever changing, right?
Yeah.
What connection looks like and feels like. I think that, even in a time of social media where we feel so connected, it's kind of a filtered connection, right? Sometimes because we can, take a picture and we can filter it and crop it and, we can make it look perfect and how we want it to be. But is it the authentic story? Is it what you're trying to put out there? Are you posting for yourself? Are you posting for others? And so, and at this time where, so many of us are using social media and the internet and our phones for connection, it's interesting how still lonely and isolated we all feel in
Right.
this.
And the more and more that I do connect on this platform, the more I realize how valuable it is.
Yeah.
And there are so many people out there who need our connection, as advisors, as counselors, as performers and speakers. But it's interesting that you said something about the filter, because 5 minutes before we got on the call, I took a picture of my screen, and it's a white screen, and it says no internet, right? It says no internet, and I posted it on Instagram, and I spent about 60 seconds deciding what best version of white was going to be the best picture on Instagram. So how real is that I wanted to present the best version, filtered version of a blank white screen that says no internet. Yeah, we are totally controlling our messaging to the world.
Yeah.
It's important to realize that if we shouldn't compare ourselves to others, right, on social media, because most folks are filtering their life.
Yes.
Yep. So hey, tell me about Lighthouse, the Lighthouse Leadership Society.
So Lighthouse is one of those things that I think, next to my son, is one of the proudest things I feel I've ever birthed, so to speak.
Yeah.
Lighthouse began, years ago. It started with a colleague of mine, James Albuquerque, who's now at UConn.
Yeah.
And he and I were having a conversation, and it was after one of those weekends that any of us in higher education, we've had these weekends where there's a lot of transports, a lot of, residence hall destruction on campus after nights of partying, and from a counseling center perspective, there was some mental health issues that we were dealing with students, and we were just talking at open house, right? We're all standing there with our trifolds, telling people about what Endicott offers, but at the same time on the side, we're having conversations about what's actually going on campus, right? So you're in this position where you're selling this experience and selling this image,
right?
And then on our sidebar, it's like, okay, let's talk about what's actually going on that we don't often see in the catalog or on the website.
Right.
Let's talk about some of what's happening. And it was in that James had shared with me an experience he had as an undergrad at Springfield College. They have been doing a retreat called LTC for 50 plus years.
Okay.
And James had shared this experience with me, and I thought, you know what, wouldn't it be amazing to get these students off campus, away from their cell phones, away from technology, and to truly connect, and what would that look like? And we started having a conversation about leadership and what is leadership. And the president that year, Dr. Wiley, who passed away 2 years ago, but was super supportive of new initiatives and anything that faculty and staff wanted to bring to the table. And so James and I wrote a proposal to create this Lighthouse Leadership Society, to take students on a retreat. It was going to be a one-time thing. And the light in Lighthouse stands for learning to inspire, guide, help, and teach, and looks at leadership through a lens of self-awareness, reflection, and activism. It's not about trust falls. It's not about learning how Myers-Briggs can factor into your personal and professional development. It's truly about who are you? What is your story? And not only what is your story, but sharing your story, providing a safe space where students were able to kind of explore who they are, where they came from. And after this one retreat, I got a call from the president the next day, and he said, I'll find the money. I want you to do this every year.
Great. That's great.
Yeah. So and it's amazing. Each year, 8 student facilitators work 365 days from one year to the next in preparing for the retreat. But then, this year the pandemic happened, and this will be the first year in 12 years that we're not going on a retreat.
Right.
And so what we now have to do is try to figure out a way, how can we help students develop, explore, share their self-awareness, be able to reflect and act upon it in an environment where we have to social distance.
Sure. But I mean, but you are transitioning to the connections being made here.
Yes.
Right. A lot of the work can be done face-to-face and reflections. And that's really what I want to talk about, is how you're able to recreate a very much no technology event.
Yeah.
Separate yourself from the technology, spend time with other people, right? But what's the most important thing about your retreat was the connection.
Yeah.
Not how you connected, right?
Yes.
So you're recreating it. You're just framing it differently.
Yeah.
But the students are still going to have a very impactful experience with you and your team. Mm-hmm. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so those leaders that have been working on it since last year, they're probably nervous.
They are.
Yeah.
Some are grieving because some of them have been a part of Lighthouse since they went as freshmen and have been facilitators as sophomores, juniors, and here they are, the culmination, their senior experience. And so some of them are grieving that they thought, senior year, they had watched previous seniors kind of have this experience as saying goodbye to Lighthouse on the retreat. Sure. And so, even with those seniors, saying to them, listen, your opportunity to facilitate a Lighthouse retreat doesn't go away. Yeah. If you are in the area and our next retreat is 2 years from now and you want to be a facilitator for Lighthouse, that door remains open.
But for this year, reframing it for them, and this is where we come into play. Right, because we have experienced positive results of connecting on Zoom, and it may be that your student leaders have not yet seen the possibility.
Well, and I think that, with students, we have to separate it from the academic experience to a social connection experience. And I think that that's one of those challenges, is that originally what we saw in the spring is anytime you invited students to participate in Zoom, they were almost anticipating an academic lecture experience.
Right.
And a lot of them came in with, anxiety about, do I show myself? Do I let people see what's going on behind me? Do I use a green screen? Do I just, have the black picture with my name? Right. And just exploring some of that. I think that in and of itself is how we have to talk about this experience.
Right. And that is what you're doing moving forward.
Yeah. Yes. And providing that space. I mean, even, something that we often talk about, in Lighthouse is just how you see yourself versus how others see you.
Yeah.
And in this whole Zoom experience, it's one of those where you can't escape what you look like. I mean, as you and I are having this conversation, I can't ignore that little box that's above you where I know if I look up, I can see myself.
Yeah, right.
And what's interesting for individuals who struggle with appearance, that struggle with the way that they present themselves, whether it be, by body, by physical appearance, we can't escape that anymore. And it becomes tiring. It becomes deflating. It becomes defeating. So talking to students about what that experience is like and I think that that's one of those things, is we have to give space for that, and then also try to figure out what strategies will work for folks, whether it's embracing, loving, and accepting the image that they do see, or finding those opportunities to, take a little Post-it note and cover it up, or find those things that are going to make them feel more comfortable.
Yeah, or, invite them to also have their camera off.
Yeah.
That's been a debate with a lot of folks, and I had a really interesting interview with Ama Marfo, who's really an introvert specialist, and she's one of the other interviews, and she was explaining to me how necessary it is to be able to be engaged. They can be fully engaged, but not having to see your own face, and being able to be what in your level of comfort on the call. Right. And she explains it way better than I do. Right? I asked the question, I got the answer, and now I'm relaying the answer in a non-professional guitar playing way. But it is. But the most important thing, as she said, also, is that they're still present.
Yes.
And you're. It didn't occur to me that looking at yourself could be draining because of your own way that you perceive yourself. And there are ways to change the way that the camera angle works, but really, like, everyone at some point, I think this happens as you mature, you realize that you're beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? You embrace yourself for who you are. Mm-hmm. You just say, hey, this is cool. I am the most uniquely amazing version of me there is.
Yes.
Right? And but it doesn't always happen when you're 18. And so the more that we can encourage that, and, if folks do want to make life changes, that we help them through those processes too.
Right.
I have talked too much. Like Pat Benatar says, love is a battlefield. Interviews are also a battlefield. I know that's your favorite all-time go-to karaoke song.
Yes, it is. It's interesting. For being an extremely social, outgoing person, doing karaoke is not my jam. But one of my nearest and dearest friends, she was a karaoke host, and as a good friend, I would go and support her. And, this was a song that she would sing with me, and it's so funny. So now she wound up moving to North Carolina, but to this day, if I need to represent, that's what I'm going to go to. Can
we sing it together? Just the love is a
battlefield. No, the best part is the whoa, 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 we are strong. That's the one, right?
No one can tell us
we're wrong. I mean,
it's in our hearts. It's a great song.
And great video, right? Music videos.
She's walking down that street, the alley.
Yes.
Right?
Yep, with the snap.
And then the dancers fall in behind her.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about.
Listen, man. I walk around campus sometimes with that image in my hand that I just need backup dancers behind me at all times, just walking around.
Oh man, wouldn't that? People just fall in, it's like, who is that? Oh, it's Lindsey. She's got her dancers behind her again.
Again.
Oh man. So all right, let's get back to what we're talking about. Helping students who are struggling with mental health or social isolation, and how do we get them to remain connected? But that same thing that you're doing for students applies to all of the advisors I think that's who I'm really thinking about now as we move into the new semester, because the advisors and the higher ed pros are going to be the ones who, how we feel about ourselves are going to have an impact on, and we're going to model the behavior for the students. How can we build our resiliency skills?
Yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost, it's in order to be a lighthouse for others, you have to think about what your lighthouse is, right? Where do you learn, inspire, guide, help, and teach? What fuels you? What drives you? And I think that we all have to take a moment to reflect for ourselves what this experience is like for us, right? As advisors, we're navigating not only policy and politics in college environments, but personally. We have elderly parents who we can't see. Mm-hmm. We have partners who are being furloughed or losing their jobs. Mm-hmm. We are experiencing this pandemic alongside of our students. And I think that in order for us to recognize how to support our students, right, first we have to see how this is impacting us, and finding those professional peers who we can talk to about that, who we can have our own kind of drop in, have coffee with one another via Zoom and just check in. How are you? What's going on with you as a person, so that you as a professional can kind of take that deep breath and feel ready to support, individuals who, let's face it, they're asking us questions that we don't have answers to.
Sure.
Right? I've been doing counseling for 20 plus years, and have sat with students navigating suicide, sexual assault, self-injury, eating disorders, right? And heartbreak. And I can sit there with students because there's something in my personal and professional toolbox that can connect and relate to that student. Mm-hmm. I don't have anything in my toolbox that can help me in dealing with a pandemic because I've never gone through something like this.
Right.
And so, I think that that's one of those that in higher education, we can't ignore the fact that when you walk onto a college campus, right, there's a hierarchy. You have your president, you have your vice president, there's a hierarchy. And students are looking up the hierarchy.
Sure.
And yet with this, we have to recognize that we're all looking at one another. That we have to take that time. And I did a faculty institute last week. Earlier this week. And one of the things that I said from day one, when we are connecting with students again, we have to pause and give space to what it is that we're navigating. Not only right now, but recognizing what we're going to be navigating in this fall semester in terms of uncertainty and potential for change and disagreement. There's a lot we're going to be navigating. But I think for advisors, first and foremost, we have to take that time to reflect on how this experience has impacted you. And then again, what have you learned in this experience for yourself? How have you been inspired? How have you been guided? How have you been helped? How have you been taught in this experience? What has been your lighthouse? And I think through that, we can then kind of stand strong and be that lighthouse for our students. But we have to first take that moment and really reflect on that.
I think you said something that is very powerful, that I think is going to help all of us, including me, is that you said you don't have anything in your toolbox to deal with the pandemic, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for saying that. Really, like,
Yeah.
really, yeah. But the other really important piece is that we, across the country in higher ed and the advisors, we do need to find someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be on our campus. It doesn't have to be someone in the same job. It doesn't even have to be a counselor. But it doesn't have to be. It should not necessarily be about work, right? You can talk about work, but let's support each other. Let's elevate each other. Let's complain to each other if need be. Yeah. And just acknowledge that we don't have the tools because this is all brand new. We're creating the toolbox. Like we are. I'm sure you're daily learning new things from students and faculty and staff on your campus.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And learning how to share those resources, right? Because, let's face it, right now with higher education, I mean, there's a lot of organizations and companies coming out of the woodwork that are going to sell you all sorts of things to help you do your job. And at the end of the day, for those of us as advisors, we know our budgets are frozen. Yeah. We know that our resources are not going to be what they were. And so, I have so appreciated the online forums that individuals like yourself and other organizations have created that say, hey, what are you doing? What's working for you? Where have you failed? And feeling okay and saying, you know what, I set this program up and it bombed bad. Yeah. So that we can say, okay, all right, good to know, lesson learned. And learn from one another.
That's great. Thank you for your time today.
Oh,
it's been a pleasure. Welcome. It's been a pleasure thinking about Pat Benatar.
Yes.
Right. And it's been a pleasure talking. I'm excited for your students. I'm going to follow up with you to find out how Lighthouse goes this year.
Please.
Right. Because that's going to be really interesting because they have a preconceived notion of what it is.
Yeah.
But let's remind them of why they're doing it.
Correct.
And to use a different platform to accomplish the same goals.
Yes.
It might not be out under a tree with a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
But
before we go, I just want to share one more thing as far as an advisor that I've tapped into that has been incredibly rewarding for me, eye-opening for me, is tapping into our alumni, right? Those students who we built relationships and connection with prior to all of this, they still have their fingers on the pulse of the student body, the student population, the campus, the culture, the community, all of that. They maybe have a clear vision of what it looked like prior to all of this. So they remember the experience that they felt. We as advisors, we want to give the experience, but we want to be reminded from students, what did they feel at the end of the day? What was it that left an imprint or a mark? Because it may not have been the thing that you spent the most money on, right? It may not have been that thing that you worked so hard in developing. It was some teeny tiny little, token that they got from it that they're like, hey, don't forget about this, or Lighthouse did this for me, or peer education did this, or student activities did this for me. And I think that our alumni can be incredible reminders for us as advisors. Like, this is what the real work is about, right? Right.
Because you're hearing from them what's the alumni's memory of what that event, not the event itself, but what the event may help them feel, and the lessons they learned there. Not that it was a specific thing, right? That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. I shall.
I will. I want to find out how it goes. I'll check in with you sooner than you think.
Wonderful. I'm
All right.
excited to share.
Thank you
All
so much.
right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.